I remember now. Well, welcome and greetings. We're happy you're all here. We hope you all signed in back at the table as you entered there. And we welcome new members if you're not a member yet. We also welcome donations. That's how we live. We live on memberships and donations. We have no paid employees. We have no large treasury. We live by our supporters. And several of our board of directors members are here tonight. When those board of directors members are here, will you stand up, please? Most of them have a little name tag on. There's some more. There they go. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's great. And our next meeting, after this, I want to tell you about the next meeting, and then I'll tell you about this one. Our next meeting will be on October 18th in the same place at 7:30. And it's about the 1993 fire, which is exactly 25 years commemoration in October. Gene Felder has a visual presentation, and I think it'll be worthwhile, whether you lived through it or not, to see the devastation that was wreaked on Laguna Beach 25 years ago. The HIP District, which stands for Historic and Interesting Places, has been around for a century. What? Oh, you're right. Been around for a century, but has only had that name for a decade. There we go. The area, which stretches along Coast Highway from Thalia Street to Bluebird Canyon Drive, has taken on this new incarnation to rebrand and draw interest to what most think of as the fun part, or the cool part of town. Susan Elliott, our speaker, who has lived in Laguna Beach for 25 years, is the social media coordinator for the HIP District, which means she creates content for the Instagram and Facebook pages. Susan has owned the Twig Shop for the last 7 years, as well as the property commonly known as the place next door to the Sandpiper. I'm sure nobody has ever heard of that. Where the Spice Merchant and By Hand are located. She will present an overview of the area. Joe Hanauer, who is a local business owner, philanthropist, and sport of the arts, will present a history of Pottery Shack and his efforts to revive it while preserving the charm. Chris Keller is known for becoming the owner of the second oldest bar in Laguna Beach, the Marine Room, which he purchased from Kelly Boyd. But he is also responsible for reviving La Casa del Camino. Chris will present the story of its history and the reviving of that property. Thank you for coming. Susan?
I provided Ed with the information that Chris owned the second oldest bar, but he actually owns the oldest bar. So I want to correct that. Yeah, the Marine Room. Okay, so let's get started here. Can we turn down the lights, or is that, should we leave them on? Johanna, should we leave the lights up? No. So everybody wants to know, where is the HIP District? First off, the HIP District was started by two of the people who are sitting here, Joe Hanauer and Chris Keller, and also Ruben Flores was instrumental. Joe started advertising his businesses that are located at the Old Pottery Place, and the other people started noticing, hey, why don't we get together? We could, draw some more interest and get people to come down to this part of town, and so that's how it got started. The HIP District stretches from 7 blocks from Thalia Street down to Bluebird Canyon, and this map comes from a map that we pass around amongst the merchants. And I wanted to point out, Robin Williams, who is here tonight, explained to me that 2 of the streets in the HIP District, Thalia and Calliope, are actually named after Greek muses. And apparently, you begged the muses to sing for you, and they would bring you black, as the story goes, the daughters of Zeus. And here's a map of, I believe it's probably from the 30s. And I've stared at this map for a long time, because you can see right here is the Casa del Camino. Here, I believe that's the Friendship Shelter. That's the recovery building there. There's an old gas station right here. And I think this is might be where Wahoo's is, and the other buildings I couldn't really figure out, but if anybody wants to talk about it later, feel free. So this is the start of the hip district. This is Thalia Street, and you might recognize this building because right now there's a Billabong surf shop there. There's Goo Ramen, and there's Thalia Street surf shop. But right now, you can during this period, you can see that it was Mortensen's Salon of Photography. And I was going to just skip over this building because I thought it couldn't possibly be interesting, but it turns out it's actually the most interesting area. William Mortensen was a photographer to the stars. So he was based in Hollywood and took photos of Jean Harlow and some other actresses, Fay Ray. But he was sort of despised by the other photographers at the time. In fact, Ansel Adams called him the Antichrist because Ansel Adams and those photographers were into realism and beautiful scenery and landscapes, whereas this is what William Mortensen produced. So he was reviled, he was ignored, he was put down, and by the time he died, he was so humiliated that he barely kept any of his negatives or prints. But then around 2014, he got rediscovered, and there's been books written about him. There were some shows in Los Angeles and New York, and so he has a big revival now. But you can see why at the time he might not have been appreciated. So this is what it looks like today. This I think I took on Memorial Day weekend or another holiday. And see, the hip district has definitely gotten more busy, over the years. And we go down the street, and this is the Colony Kitchen. And how many people have eaten at the Colony Kitchen? Yeah, a lot of people. I went to Chip Harrell's memorial. It was this weekend, and Chip Harrell and Chuck, who owned the Sandpiper, apparently would take their tip money and go eat at the Colony Kitchen. And again, Robin told me that he also used to eat there and get hamburger steak. So this is actually where my shop is now. And here's my shop today. So if you need a card or a this is where you go. And then as we go down the street, you'll see on the left, this is a building that my husband and I bought in 2011. It used to be the Asian antique store. And before that, it was another Richard Yeagle, or Yeagle Antiques. And you can see on the right, Richard Yeagle left this door on the building, which we really like. And so we kind of, when we fixed up the place, we kind of went, my husband calls this ye olde, and we made the place look more ye olde. But prior to that, it was Gregory Ain actually built this building. And he's a fairly famous mid-century architect who worked with Richard Neutra. He has, there's a whole subdivision of houses that he designed and built that's near Santa Monica, and they're very sought after because it's, people are into the mid-century look now. But he built our building for the Theosophical Society. And that was started by this woman, Madame Blavatsky. So in the 50s, when this building was built, the Theosophists met in our building, which I think is super cool. If you go in and you can see where the spice merchant is now. And I don't have a picture of it, unfortunately, but there's a ceiling made out of glass that's sort of pyramid shaped. And there's sort of a mystical, occulty kind of religion. You can see there's a lot of famous people were members. But I get a kick out of thinking that at one end, we had William Mortensen with his occulty, grotesque photos. At the same time, the Theosophists were meeting here too. So it must have been a really crazy, interesting part of town. And I don't think people realize what was going on in the 50s down here. So moving down, I got this photo today from Carolyn Hobart. And this is the Shipmates Drive-In. And this beauty here is Carolyn. And apparently that's her Swedish boyfriend that she was dating at the time. This was from the 50s, and this was called the Shipmates. And it's where Jack in the Box is right now. And we can go across the street. This doesn't exist anymore, but this is a gas station, and I believe this is where the Village Fair shops are now. And we keep going down, and then we get to, of course, the Sandpiper and the English Garden. And you can see a little bit of our building, the brick there, but I'm sure that must have been another version of it before Gregory Ain built the Theosophical Society. But I love this picture because it just shows how beautiful that building was. It still is. You can see, here's what it looks like today, the English Garden. And of course, the Sandpiper is right next door, and I thought it was the oldest bar in Laguna Beach, but now we know Chris's bar, Shaquille's, the Marine Room, is probably the oldest. But in any case, here's Chuck Carroll and Chip Carroll. I believe this was at the 70th anniversary of the Sandpiper, because it was open. I believe in 1942 it was a restaurant, a steak restaurant where a lot of military guys would come. And I've heard that you could pick your own steak and they cook it for you. And then eventually it turned into a bar, and eventually they bought the bar, they run the bar for decades. And they're very proud that nothing has changed for 30 or 40 years, including the parking. And unfortunately, she just passed away, but Chuck and his sons are still running the place, and I think they're going to run it for a long time. And there's a cruise on down. This is the Coast Inn, and the granddaughter of the builder of this property is here today too, Carolyn Burris. A beautiful building, built around the same time as some of these other places, like in the late 20s. And then we go across the street and we find the Art Center. So the Art Center has been a lot of different things. It turns out that the configuration of the buildings that we see here has changed over the years. It was built in 1926 by Durrell Brayton, who was also of Brayton Pottery. He made dinnerware, vases, figurines, and we have some samples of his pottery here. And has left us some of these samples that were actually produced here at Brayton Pottery. This is now the Main Street Cabaret. Downstairs, there's the bar, and it's been different things. It was Bounce and another gay bar, and it's been decades as a bar. But way back, here's another different view of the place. And then this is, I believe, where Saline is now. And here's a view from the top. You can kind of see this is pretty much what it looks like today. Actually, they've added kind of a patio out front for the restaurant. And then here's some people making pottery, and across the street you can see where the earth shoe places and Casa del Camino. And then this is apparently in the basement, which is now the bar where the great pottery was made. And this, I don't know, because if everybody's eating it, Andres. But this is Gary. He's been there forever. He was a fountain of knowledge about the place. He has a really wonderful collection of pottery and money that people brought him from all over the world. And, yeah, so he let me photograph some of his pottery. He gave me some other photos of menus, and he's got all kinds of things. If you ever go in there, just ask to see his collection of pictures, and he's a fountain of knowledge about this part of town. Here's what Saline looks like today. Still just like a beautiful, beautiful property. We've really taken care of it, and it's totally kept its charm, which is wonderful. Here's the bar, and it's still, you know, they've also kept it beautiful, and we're lucky to have these buildings. And then finally, this is the new art center. So over the years, the buildings were replaced and rebuilt and replaced, and finally this new version has emerged. And yeah, so we're lucky to have that.
You mean the shops were replaced, or the buildings?
The buildings were actually replaced. Yeah, and anyway, I read that all of them were demolished, because as I was reading about it, it was kind of interesting to see like how much work was done, and the cells dug out, and, you know. Yeah, it's been, all of these buildings have been a lot of different things, and you could make a career talking about any one of them, but I want to hand the mic off to Joe, who is going to discuss the Pottery Shack.
Good. You know, one of the questions that will often be asked is, why did we call it the Hip District, and why not call it the Village? Because that's what it's been known for years. And the reason for that is that we were looking for some way to brand that neighborhood. And if we called it the Village, everyone would think that was downtown. And so that was a problem. And so that was really the only name sort of connected with that area. So we had to make it up, and that's how we came up with the Hip District, which stands for Historic and Interesting Places. So let me chat about the pottery, the Old Pottery Shack. Now, many of you, I'm a newcomer. You know, people keep reminding me, having come here in 1983, that I'm a newcomer, which I appreciate. So some of you know a lot more about it than I do, but I know a few things about it. And let me share with you what I do. And that is that in 1925, on that site that we now know as the Old Pottery Place, there was a residence, one residence, and that was about the only thing that was on the site. And that was built around 1925, and shortly thereafter, it became a commercial establishment. Now, if that happened today, it would have been called Starbucks. But at the time, it was called the Yum Yum Tea Room. And so the Yum Yum Tea Room was really the first commercial structure on that site. Around 1935, two brothers, Roy Childs and Van Childs, excuse me, who lived up in the Pasadena area, their family had a gas station. They took some money from that gas station. They didn't take it. Their parents gave it to them, I'm certain. And they bought $80 worth of pottery, some vases, glassware, and really on Anita and Coast Highway is where they first established these seconds and thirds, actually, of pottery pieces that just wouldn't qualify to be sold as first-class pieces. They shortly thereafter moved down the street to Brook Street and put their tables out, and that really was the beginning of Pottery Shack. Over time, they started building a few buildings. And really, what happened was there was the Yum Yum Tea Room. They went from the vacant lot to the Yum Yum Tea Room. And then, over time, there were 7 structures that were built on the site that's now the Old Pottery Place. And those 7 structures were sort of cobbled together over many years to be the Pottery Shack. And for those of you and many of you in this room visited the Pottery Shack, you know it as a place that was sort of rambled and cobbled together. You'd go up ramps and down ramps, and you'd go indoors and out of doors. And for example, when we started really figuring out what to do with it, we found that there was actually a house within the building, meaning as they kept expanding, they took a house that was, a 2-story residence, but because it wasn't built from the back of the lot to the front of the lot, they built a building on the back of the lot, in front of the lot. There was a hall as you went to where the where the pottery wheel was. Remember that area where the pottery wheel was? Well, really, the back wall was actually the front wall of the house. And so if you walked through that area, you'd open a door and you'd look down at pottery. So it was just a real interesting spot. Eventually, by the way, when we started working on it, the only thing that held those buildings up was one another. In other words, they literally were leaning against one. As an example, the back wall of what's now a Sapphire restaurant, when it rained, many of you remember this, when it rained, the water would come off Glen Area, go across the parking lot in Glen Area, go through the Pottery Shack, out to Coast Highway, because there were no foundations. The buildings were built on sand. And that back wall, as an example, the only thing that held it up were the shelves that were holding the powder. So those shelves were nailed to the verticals in the wall. And when you took the shelves off, the wall fell down. Literally. I mean, that's what the old, Pottery Shack was like. At its peak, the shack stocked more than 200 dinnerware patterns. And in addition, throughout its rambling structures, a big inventory of glassware, ceramics, giftware, and home and garden accessories, holiday ornaments, and all kinds of knickknacks. If you look at the pictures here, like this one, for example, many of the features here remain. If you look at the animals on the roof, if you look at the tile on this area right here, which I'll refer to a little bit later, the crooked vents on the roof, obviously the Grieger statue on the corner, the powder right up here, and I'll comment on each of these things in just a few minutes. But most of these things that you see here, one way or another, remain intact. Once you go to the next picture, if you look at this, and I'll comment on this in a couple of minutes, but keep in mind this willow fence, and I'll refer to that in a few minutes. So let me comment on a few of the things that are noteworthy. If we go to the next slide. Okay. Yeah. So everyone was concerned about what's going to happen. Many of you remember the fuss that was made. And I can appreciate it because this was a landmark for all these years. But this was an example. Oh my God, what's going to happen to this place? It's going to be all modernized. And this is what the sort of theme was in 2005 as we started working on it. Why don't we go to the next one? And this is the Old Pottery Place today. By the way, we wanted to keep the name Pottery Shack, but we couldn't do that. We wanted to also find a retailer of pottery, you know, for the courtyard. We were unable to do it, and that's how we came up with the Old Pottery Place. We had a contest at the time. I should have brought along the names. It was fantastic. We had a contest. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of 800 entries of about 2,000 names. And they were terrific. I mean, some were hilarious. But we ended up with the Old Pottery Place. It was submitted and an award was given. But if you look at a couple of things here, you'll see the Pottery Place signs, both the arch as well as right here. And that's the same kind of lettering that the Old Pottery Shack had. So we tried to retain the look and the feel by designing a logo with a new name. Those were done by Marlo Bartels. All of you know Marlo, and you know the great work he does. So Marlo worked with us to do that. And then on the other side of the arch, there's a glass panel that was done by John Barber. That when you're standing in the patio looking toward the ocean, it's a glass panel that gives a view of what the sea looks like when you're standing on the patio. If you look up high, you see the animals, obviously, and a bear, an elk, and a ram. We don't know when they were placed there originally. Some of you may know, but if you look at those early pictures, you saw them up there, so we know that they were quite old. A funny story about those is that when we took them down, because they were in terrible shape, there was an article in the paper that I didn't bring along, but it talks about when kids from the high school took the bear and put him on a string and drove him down Coast Highway. Some of you are shaking your head, you remember. So they were in terrible shape. So one of the things that happened, I looked for somebody to work on these so we can bring it back. And, you know, when you're going out to the desert, there's that large, what is it, dinosaur? That large dinosaur? So I got hold of that guy that did the dinosaur. And he picked it up and said he was going to get it for me. You know, take care of it. And he called me about he gave me a price to redo them. He called me about 2 or 3 weeks later and said, by the way, you know, you said do this, do this, do this. But, you know, I can really make them look fantastic. I can deal with the coloring, I can deal with the muzzle, with the animals, do shading. And I said, you know, they can be about 40 feet in the air. So just do what we talked about, and that'll be fine. He said, okay. So calls back about maybe a month or 2 months later and said, you know, are you sure you don't want me to do this? And he described again what he was going to do. And we weren't in a hurry because we were still working on the place. And this keeps going for about 6 months. And finally, I called him and I said, you know, we're ready for these animals. He said, you know, remember I've been telling you how I can do this shading? And I mean, it's fantastic. And I said, no, just bring him the way they are. He said, well, let me tell you what happened. He said, I picked him up and my grandkids came and saw him in the shop. And they were so intrigued by him that we started working on him. He had done all of this work the first week. And he was just hoping, one way or another, that we'd pay for him. And which we did. But those animals, we decorate them over Christmas. There's a wreath around the neck. We put a red light on the deer, on the elk. So it's fun. The legend is that Roy Childs was a hunter. So, but we don't know that. But that's the reason we put him on. At the northernmost corner of the Pottery Place is the statue of Eiler Larson, who was from 1940s for about 20 years stood there. The concrete statue was created and placed by local sculptor Charles Rovey. And Mike Tauber, that some of you know, was an artist in town. He did the restoration of the coloring, things like that. And the funny thing is, as you all know, Eiler Larson didn't have the most friendly face. You know, and the statue was as frightening as Eiler. And so when Mike Tauber and I looked at it, we said, oh, God, I wish we could make him look a little better. So Mike ended up putting some pink in the cheeks, giving almost what you call a tuck, So now, there's a little bit of a smile, and he did a terrific job. Inside if we go to the next one, let's go to the one after this. This is the inside of Sapphire, and this takes place in several places. A lot of the original roofs are there, and even inside the restaurant, you'll see the edge of an E as we cobble together different parts. We're just doing that on the second floor now, where we're putting a small addition. We go to the next one. This is just an example. This is an office off the alley that had garage doors on it. So we kept the garage doors. They slide shut at night, so it has that same look during the day. There's windows behind there. So it's just a way to look. Let's go to the next one. This, I said, keep an eye on that willow fence. Before I mentioned the old willow fence. We wanted to put that up again. Now, by the way, if you remember, for all the people that wanted to keep it exactly the way it was, and everyone that was worried about what would happen, the willow fence was gone. There was plexiglass across the front, remember? So when we started this work, it was pretty awful. So we wanted to recreate the willow fence, but the trouble is people would put their feet on it and fall over. So what we did, two artists, Sherry Bullard and let's see where's the person's name, Marsh Scott, Marsh, is an artist in town. We had them work with us on an art and public places thing. So instead of just doing sort of a statue and putting it someplace, the entire front is surrounded with a replica of a willow fence. And these bas-relief tiles that you see here, and you saw the other one earlier, those all come from postcards. You remember the postcards that used to fold out? So this it's literally a sculpture called Greetings from Laguna. And it has these bas-relief tiles, 23 different ones. And if you walk around and look at them, they are great pictures. I mean, the artist just did a terrific job with this. Let's go to the next one. So Anne Frank is here in the room, and she'll remember this. But the wife of revered early California plein air painter William Wendt, his wife was widely recognized as a sculptor, Julia Brackenland, and her specialty was bas-relief portraits. So Anne Frank, who's over here, was at a yard sale, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but she was at a yard sale and found this crumpled up form that was used to cast this piece of work. And she bought it for $50. And it was almost like crunched up pieces of paper. And Marv Johnson, Ann Johnson's husband, she worked with him, and he brought it back to life. The authenticity was confirmed, and this piece is in this heritage walk at the Pottery Place. It says underneath, "Love is priestess at the altar of truth. Music is the expression of her praise." And so it's a fabulous piece. And a lot of times people walk by it. I'm not sure we displayed it in the best spot, but, it's a question of where do you put these things. So it's a great piece to look at. If you go to the next one, and thank you for having found that. If you look at this, this was done by Pops David. Chris Abel's grandfather. And he did signs, a lot of these wooden signs around town. And of course his son, which is Greg's father, did a lot of the buildings with crazy brick, that you see around. And so this was done, and Pop Abel did this to depict the potters that did the work inside the Pottery Place. Again, Mike Tauber did the painting, we took it down, worked on it, and then a few things, Greg's good friend about it, called me, he said, "Joe, I just realized Pop doesn't have a pipe in his mouth." And he always had a pipe when he worked, on the work he did. And so he made a pipe, Greg did, and put it in God's mouth. And, so, you know, that's all part of the scene.
Joe,
Oh,
I think
yeah.
his name was Morris.
No,
I.E. Christian, I think.
yeah, it was Christian. Then if we go to the next one, this mural, and if any of you have the name, this mural was done by an artist in San Francisco. I have the name, and I misplaced it. I know it's somewhere in my files. I'm going to look for it. It's a great, great piece. You know, you can see it from down below. Take a look at it. If any of you want to get a closer look, I'll be glad to show you around. But it has the saying underneath it. One of the great things of these artists at that time, it wasn't only that they did the work, but then they wanted to tell you a story. And so this says, by the way, it shows a peacock, very fancy, very colorful, and it says, do not sacrifice freedom for pomp and show. So that's sort of the theme of this thing. And again, it was done by an artist in Northern California. I'll find it. But if anyone knows it, you know, or if it's in the Historical Society's records, please let me know. It'll save me the trouble of having to find it. So that's basically the story of the old pottery place and how it's, you know, been put back together again. There's some plates there in the back. People wanted me to put them all over the place. I said, no, enough's enough. But, you know, I think we spent a fair amount of time and effort to do what everyone wanted to do. We're thrilled about it. The merchants that are there, you know, today, Sapphire Restaurant, Pantry, Chocolate Soldier, Laguna Heights Books, person I happen to know very well. The other stores, you know, Tootsie's, Blue Eyed Girl, they're all enjoying the location. So thank you very much. I'll be glad to answer your questions.
Okay, can I have the lights on just for a couple of minutes? Just to start. Okay, sorry everybody. Stretch. Okay, so I'm Chris Keller. I've owned the Casa del Camino since 2002. So I actually want to start at 2002 for a quick couple of minutes and just give you the most recent history, and then I'll kind of jump back into the past. But in 2002, myself and two partners found the Casa del Camino, fell in love with the building, and we bought it. The day we took over, we were actually supposed to take over on April 1st of 2002, and unfortunately I said we can't take over on April Fool's Day, so let's close tomorrow. So we actually closed on the 2nd, and that's when we took over. That night, I went home and I just said to myself, I said, there's so much to do in this hotel. I said, I'm going to pack a small bag and I'm going to move into the hotel. And I moved into the worst room in the hotel, smallest and worst room in the hotel, so I could sell the rest of them. And I meant to only be there for 2, 3, 4 weeks. I was actually there for 7 years. And I lived in a 150 square foot room for 7 years. Amazing experience. During that time, not only did we renovate the hotel, we bought the tenant out of the restaurant, opened up the restaurant, opened up the rooftop, and it was quite the experience. In about 2006, when the economy is sort of like it is now, everything's going well. The city and what's going on at that sleepy little bed and breakfast? All of a sudden now it's so busy, and there's people coming. There's Ferraris pulling up on the side, and so at that time we then had to come sit down with the city and kind of figure out where we were with our conditional use permit and what we were actually doing, and the gray areas that were there were definitely being utilized. So we, after many months, history book about La Casa del Camino that probably helped passing that out to residents knocking on doors, getting some petitions signed to keep La Casa del Camino and the rooftop open to the general public. Everything worked out great. We're super happy. Everyone that showed up, the hundreds and hundreds of people that showed up at the city council meeting and the planning commission meetings, were very happy at that time as well that we were going to keep it open. So, about 2009, we have a great operating hotel. We have a great restaurant. The rooftop's good. We had to refresh our hotel and kind of rebrand. And typically for a hotel, every 5 to 7 years, you want to do a nice renovation. Maybe every 10 years, you want to really do a hard renovation, replace all the furniture and the bathrooms. And so that hotel was redone in 1996 by the former owner, and it was time for a really hard renovation where we redid the bathrooms and whatnot. But we came up with a great idea. We said, we're going to take 10 rooms, and we're going to get together with the surf companies, and we're going to get together with local designers, and we're going to give each surf company and each designer one room, and we're going to brand each room. We had different rooms from Quicksilver to Billabong to Lost to Etnies, and they're all, this is the Etnies room here, this is Pierre, the owner of Etnies, this is artwork that's in the room, these are, some of his skateboards, this is his furniture made out of skateboard decks. This headboard was made by Etnies shoes, they're skateboard shoes. This is all the leather from the skateboard shoes that they use for the headboard. Ryan Sheckler, you can't see it here, but he signed above the bed. He's a famous skateboarder. And, the sink inside of the bathroom is actually a famous skate spot called the Chicken Bowl. It's a pool, so it's shaped just like the pool, and it's called the Chicken Bowl. I guess that's a famous spot where people skate. So at that time, we had these 10 rooms that we were renovating, and we were doing this. At that time, this is how history kind of comes back. And let me stop for a second and say, I love this building. I mean, talk about falling in love with a building or a piece of real estate. I love this building. It was built. It's amazing how it was built. It's amazing what it's been through. It's amazing just the flow in the building and how many little nooks and crannies and special little spots were in this building. Some people say it's haunted. I never had that experience. I lived there for 7 years. But in September of 2009, someone came into the hotel, asked me at the front desk, said, "Who's the owner? Is he here?" I came down. And I sat down, I met with her, and I'm just going to read you the letter she included with the gift that she gave me. It's September 10th, 2009. On behalf of our late mother, Sarah Mara Jacobson, and her estate, we would like to present this portrait of our great uncle, William Riddle, painted in Paris in 1902 by M. Bibal, B-I-B-A-L, to Mr. Christopher Keller and La Casa del Camino. We are confident you will care for it with kind consideration. Sincerely, Diane Martinez. Yeah, so that's William Riddle. And so the picture, this has been hanging in La Casa del Camino's lobby since 2009. So this is William Riddle from 1904. So amazing photo. Painted in Paris. Wow. I used to look a little bit better like this. When I took over the hotel, I had a goatee, dark hair. And then you can see, so this is Mr. Riddle. He was a councilman, an artist, and he built the Casa del Camino. So we used to have key cards in the hotel. I had a key card of the front of the hotel, a historic photo. We probably got flipped through. I had a key card with him on the key card. And one day, Diane Martinez came back. She had another gift. I love her. This is an amazing woman. She's just giving me these great gifts. So I come and I look at my gift, another painting. My manager for the restaurant, Sean, said, I know that painting. I said, what do you mean? He goes, I've seen that painting. I said, Lucian, you've never seen this painting. I just got it. I got it today. And he goes, no, I know that painting.
Oh, no way.
The Rock by William Riddle. Amazing, right? Okay. So that's my show and tell. Okay, so cool stuff happens. You know, that amazing with the surf companies as part of the hotel, this modern, like, touch to this historic property. You know, a very popular rooftop bar. You know, a restaurant that we started kind of the small plate trend, Laguna Beach, and, you know, one of the most popular ones in Orange County at the time. And, you know, we have this historic property that we're all just in love with. And I want to go back now to 1929 when this hotel opened. It was January 26th, 1929. It's exactly what it was. What it is today is what it was in 1929. It was basically, there was not a lot in town. There were not a lot of galleries, not a lot of restaurants, you know, possibly a lot of dirt roads. And the hotel was actually a place where people gathered. Locals gathered. There was a place to meet, drink, dine, entertain, dance. And all of this happened in 1929. So we're just kind of taking the heritage of it and we're just bringing it along into the modern times. And yeah, you can see, like, the steaks were, I don't know if they had the price, but there's a couple that say 35 cents for a steak. And, the restaurant has been through multiple uses. It's been a furniture store, it's been a rug shop. I think at one time it was called the Purple Cow. I don't have any documentation except the verbal. Somebody told me it was the Purple Cow, and it was an ice cream shop. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, right. So, you know, it's been through so many different things. 1996, the Lesh Patel, the former owner, he renovated it. He put the restaurant back in. It was called Sweet Thursdays at the time. And then a new restaurateur came in 2001. Brad told you about Savory's. We bought Brad out. We ran it at Savory's for a couple of years, and then we changed the name to Hyatt. It still exists today. You know, the lobby is similar to how it is now. We did have a bar in the lobby. We're actually using a bar. We're just finalizing some permits and plans for it. We're going to actually put the bar back in the lobby, redo the restaurant a little bit, and just refresh it. But it's an amazing property. So, 1929. You know, one of the oldest hotels, not the oldest, but one of the oldest hotels in Laguna Beach. A lot of great history. We have 36 guest rooms. In the 60s and 70s, you know, I got here in 2002, so I don't know about all this. However, I think, let me see if I can find it real quick. I think Bonnie Hanauer had a good quote about what happened during that time period. She said, the place had really turned into so much of a flop house by late 60s. I remember going into the hotel one afternoon to find a dark, dank lobby with a bunch of kids on the floor nodding off to sleep. In the corner was a television tuned to nothing in particular, just static. The place was a well-known drug house. And I think that was like that for about 10 years. So from the early 60s till 1996 when Delesh bought it from Maria Price, a local here in town. I think it had gone through a couple of different phases, but it was called Hotel Forensic. So when we were writing this book to help save the rooftop, when we were looking through all the microfiche and the hotel and the library, everything on the hotel, we really had a gap in time where there wasn't a lot written. I think it was just a very quiet period for the hotel. And then in 1996, literally the sign that was, there's actually the original sign is still behind the current sign that's on the front of the building. It's actually, like, behind this palm tree is where the Casa del Camino sign, but the original sign is behind it. You pull that sign off, it's embedded into the stucco. And, yeah, so it's, you know, it's brought back to its original name, La Casa del Camino, in 1996, and it's been that. And hopefully it'll never change as it's turning 90 next year. The building's turning 90. Yeah, amazing. And yeah, it's a great property. A couple other, you know, just interesting facts about it. Let's see, we took it over in 2002. We bought the restaurant in 2004 from the operator. We opened up the rooftop literally the day we bought the restaurant with just a cooler from Costco and a plywood bar. On the rooftop, we had some plastic chairs, broken plastic chairs, crooked umbrellas, and we just started to serve some beer and wine up there and built it into what it is today. And I do have to thank all of you for having these types of, for number one, for donating your time, your energy, your resources, for helping to document the history and kind of keep it alive and keep it going, and so future generations do know all about these buildings and the great history, and what great presentations tonight. I learned so much tonight that I didn't even know, and I've lived here since 2002. And I just think it's really good that we continue to do this. I will tell you, it is very expensive to keep an older building up to date. With our multiple renovations, we did have to throw some steel in here and there. We had to renovate many times. We rebuilt the rooftop twice, once by choice and once because we had to put fire sprinklers underneath the rooftop and things of that nature. But it is a costly endeavor, but it's well worth every penny, and it's something that we just have to keep preserving all of these amazing buildings and just keep it going. We just have to be able to financially support that effort. So I think that's it for me. Thank you very much. It was great being here.
I want to say thank you to all our speakers, but we want to have a chance for questions and comments here. And who has something they want to ask or say? Yes.
Hold on with the microphone here so that we can get it on record.
Not necessary.
That's my brother-in-law.
This is Hanauer. I've always been intrigued by those animals up there. Are they made out of concrete and how are they mounted up there?
Yeah, they're originally they were a cast kind of product. Okay, so they weren't concrete, but it was a cast, hollow cast product. And now they're covered in it's a plastic kind of resin. Yeah, now they're covered in resin. Exactly. And they're mounted. The kids can't get them off.
I'm curious what happens to the glass flowing.
Let's get you on the microphone.
I'm curious to know what happens to the glass flowing loose. That was such an asset.
Sure. No, it was terrific. Some of you will remember when we first opened, John Barber had his classical proof, so what happened to it was the Great Recession. Basically, in fact, it was really shame. John and Becky Barber, supposedly didn't know, but they're terrific company. And this was their first retail establishment outside of what they had at their house, and they did so well that first year and a half. I mean, they were just flying. It was just terrific. Then the recession, that was 2007, the recession. We didn't know we were in it. And so as a result, it just ran into problems, and that's what happened. It's too bad, because we thought it was a great asset.
I'd like to add just a piece of history that I enjoyed knowing about, that both Chris and Greg Abel told me about. That like here, a lot of people don't seem to know and realize, why did Eiler come to Laguna Beach? It's because Pop Abel and he went to school and high school together in Denmark. And that's where Eiler lived, was with Pop Abel and his 5 kids. But he had to live in the basement because he scared Pop Abel's wife so much. So I just find that is just a wonderful piece of history, and now they're at the Pottery Shack, so thank you.
Great.
Yeah, what is that?
I have a question, but apropos of Eiler, he was the Mormons in Ireland. The local
I'm sorry.
I actually talked there.
Good for you.
And my dad was all excited. He said, "Oh, you're giving your talk in Eiler's hometown." And Eiler's brother was the mayor of Olympus. And he came to visit Eiler, and Eiler cleaned up. Because he wanted to look respectable to his brother. Well, he shaved some. But my question is, you showed a picture of Andre's pastries. Back in the day when Robin and Carol and I were in high school, it was Andre's restaurant. And is there any connection between that?
Yeah, I might have a strong theory about it, but I believe the restaurant might be in a different location, and then they became the bakery where it is right now. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah, I think so. And then, and Gary actually has, I think, an interview, and I have a picture of someone that I
I have
about it.
the LA Times published the Andre's restaurant chocolate pudding recipe some years ago. My mother cooked it out, and I make that time
Some of you remember Leonard Agnew, Johanna. We met with some relatives, Eiler's relatives from about a year ago. Huh?
Eiler's niece came to town.
Niece or grandniece?
Probably grandniece.
Yeah, they came from, they never been over here. They came to visit. That's how he was greeted.
So does anybody know what Eiler did before he became the walker to Idlewild at Laguna Beach?
He was a gardener.
You know what he did before that?
You're going to tell us.
He was a scientist. He went to Russia to establish dairies in Russia. And he was very brilliant human being, beyond belief. And that's probably why he, went just over the top or something. But he and I used to sit at Trotter's Bakery, and he told me these stories. Yeah.
Any other?
Carolyn on the spot. I think she's reaching, so she won't mind, but I need her to talk about. She gave me those pictures today of her hanging out at the shipmates. So talk about your time in the Hip District in the 50s.
Oh boy.
We could have called this the Hip District a long time ago.
It's on this whole
Okay, so we grew up in the 50s. We were in high school, and we had shipmates driving. And it was the biggest hangout. It was right across the street from the Pottery Shack. And at that time, there were car clubs, and James Dean, and everybody's restaurant James Dean, and they worked on their cars, cool cars, and we would go to the drive-in after any excuse to get to the drive-in, and we'd meet up there. And then afterwards, the guys would just peel out of there. Just peel out of the drive-in, showing off their cars. But it was really the greatest place. It was Shipmates Drive-In. It was the picture that I show here was in 1939, 1940. But we didn't come into high school. We went to high school until 54. So the pictures of the kids that were in classes, 1953, 1954, we didn't reach high school. Anyway, it was great fun. It was a great time to grow up.
You bet.
It sure was. We had a lot of fun being involved.
Oh my God.
Talk about what you
Thank
did.
you.
Oh, well, she said, tell them about where you live. Well, I live next door to the Del Camino Hotel. That's what I call it. And I grew up in that house that you see right next door, behind the shops. The shops were built by my mother, and she had Laguna Realty in the ground floor right next to you. And upstairs was my office, and I owned a company I started called Coast Delivery and Phone-A-Meal. And as far as I know, I'm the first food delivery in Laguna Beach, if not the whole state of California. And that was my office upstairs. I worked there as a soda jerk at the drive-in. And next door to the Hotel Camino, right next door to the shop, is another shop. I don't know if you can go to that. You had it on the screen a little while ago. But that's where my mother, right there. Now, very good. You see that little, it says real estate on it. Okay, my mother went into there 1943, and made a deal with them. She said, let me rent this desk, and I'll give you 15% of whatever I make. She made them rich. Now, I don't know if any of those people are in this audience, but she made them rich. Are you? Okay. You never know in these historic groups. So my mother started in there with a little desk, and she sold property all over Laguna and made it rich. She should never have offered them 50. She should have given them $80 a month and be quiet. But anyway, then she bought the property next door, and she put in the two shops. And you see them both there. Russ Hine Jewelry was her shop that she rented to Russ Hine. Next door is her building that she built with a local architect. I think his name was Moore. And so I grew up in the house just behind it. And what a wonderful time that was. I mean, surfing at Brook Street and oh my God. And the driving right on the corner, I was in heaven. So thank you.
We want to, one more here? Here, let me do it.
Thank you. I just wanted, son?
Yes.
Yes, it's done.
I just wanted to expand on something I know about William Mortensen. He photographed some beautiful women here in town, one of whom was Barbara Hedges. And John Hedges' wife, she was a model, and he photographed her. And we were all very close, our families. So, of course, John Hedges was a great frequenter of the Dirty Bird, which is also known, of course, as the bar that right there, Sandpiper, called the Dirty Bird. That's what they call it. And a lot of people know that. And the other tidbit is with the picture of Timothy Leary. When I bought property in 1964. And before, when I bought property there was no water in the canyon above the Big Bend. So we had to dig our own water wells. And Timothy Leary had come into town in the 60s, and my son was at the El Moro Elementary School. And we got word as parents, he was born in the 60s, so he was 5 years old. They were sent home because he told me the teachers were all on a trip. They had to send the kids home because the coffee was spiked. And that's what they were told. So they cleared all the kids home, sent them home because of Timothy Leary.
We certainly can continue with informal conversation, but I'd like to issue 3 short invitations and then a thank you to our speakers. First invitation is to visit the Historical Society headquarters, which is also known as the Murphy-Smith Bungalow because the Murphy family and the Smith family lived there. If you haven't been there, it's between Wells Fargo Bank and Whole Foods, which is now a delivery service too called Amazon. But we're right in between there. We are changing exhibits. One of the exhibits up right now, some of this is from there, is of the Hip District. The exhibits change. We're open every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 1 to 4 p.m. And if you haven't been there recently or haven't been there at all, please come. Secondly, I'd like to issue an invitation again for memberships, donations, and any support you can give the Historical Society. We're all volunteers. This is what keeps us going. And thirdly, I'd like to invite you again to October 18th to the images and commemoration of the Great Fire at 25 years ago. And then I'd like to thank Susan and Joe and Chris and others for all their contributions. Let's hear from them. Thank you.
There's up here, if you want details, what's called a walking tour, the Old Pottery Place, that ties into all of these things that I talked about. So there's copies up here. Please help yourselves to them.